What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of National Pastime. John Toaster and J Rob here, who I think is now been upgraded to junior analyst from intern. So, congratulations, Josh, on the promotion.
Wow, that's full
Appreciate that.
circle. It only took a year to get another anal joke in here from our trailer. Well, glad you invited the joke.
Hey, not everyone's willing to do anal, so I'm proud to do the dirty work here and be kind of like part of the team. Really take one for the team here. No pun intended.
Teams are looking for guys that are getting down and dirty in the draft, so I think it fits.
Those greasy areas are important, man. Not everyone's willing to get down there, so
yeah. No. Enjoy the trenches. Are you able to live update your promotion on your banner, or is that something we're gonna have to take for next pod?
That might be an intern technical difficulty that we'll have to fix on the next.
Shit. So now we need another intern. Gosh damn it. Okay.
Oh, we can't afford this. This.
I'll hire a guy. I'll hire someone. There's someone at the house that I can hire to do it. It might be the same person, but I'll hire him.
Nice. So. Okay, cool. All right. Well, with that, it's been a minute since we've recorded a podcast. I think since the Super Bowl or maybe right after the start of free agency. But the NFL draft, the first round of the 2022 NFL draft is tomorrow or Thursday, depending on how or when you're listening to this. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we're just going to get right into it here with really, I think the most intriguing part of this first round is who's going to go first. Like, I feel like this is the first time in a while that we really don't know heading into draft night who the first overall pick is going to be. There's definitely a short list here, but as of right now, Travon Walker is the betting favorite for that top spot. How do we feel about that? Do you guys think that's going to actually happen? Aiden Hutchinson's sort of been pegged for that spot for a while. It was Kayvon Thibodeaux for months before that. So what do we think is going to happen with the Jags here ultimately?
Well, I don't think Thibodeaux's anywhere close to the Jags consideration right now. And Aiden Hutchinson's just a story for the Lions. So we just gotta, this is a storybook league. It's about making sure that the stories. So we'll just give him back to Detroit. Sorry, I think. I think that there's too big a risk of missing on Aiden Hutchinson, quite frankly. And he had a stellar year last year, but it's a lot to risk on Trent Baalke. And that's why I thought he was off the tackle until about 8 a.m. Eastern time today, when they did actually sign Cam Johnson. I'm still sticking with Evan Neal. I think there's some smoke show. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, Hutchinson, I know you said it's risky, but if you're looking for somebody who is going to just be solid, be like a very, very good NFL player, then I think he's the right approach. Travon Walker, is a guy that I think the ceiling is off the charts, right? His length, his athleticism, his production didn't necessarily match, some of these other guys, but he's the guy that I think is easy to sell from a number one pick standpoint, and maybe even Evan Neal to your point too. I mean, he's you can never really go wrong with like a rock solid left tackle with the number one overall pick, especially after
somebody with multiple college championships to their name. You just say, you know what, Urban Meyer's our dude. Yeah, can't go wrong with a commodity like that.
Yeah, exactly. But you can make that argument. Obviously, protect Trevor Lawrence. I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna trust Vegas at like the way that Walker has climbed up the charts over the last couple weeks, when I didn't even think he was even remotely in consideration for like a top 5 pick, coming out of free agency. And, I'm not saying that I watch every snap of every college game. And I know Georgia was like just stacked. So, I just figured he was just one of that group of studs. I didn't think he was like number one overall potential kind of guy. So I'm a little shocked, but I think because of that rise that we've seen, I'm guessing that's where they're going to go. What do you think, Josh?
Usually if there's smoke, there's fire, especially this close to the draft. If you hear GMs and other teams assuming that Walker's going to go first, then he's probably going to go first. I think it makes sense.
The only draft where we said we weren't confident who was going first. So maybe this is all smoke show trying to trade down.
True. It could be true. I do think that him going first overall is definitely probably more of a product of like being on an all-time great defense in college, winning a national championship, that it would be hard to justify passing on an all-time defensive team, like a part of the all-time defensive team. And so I think it's safe. I think Aiden Hutchinson or Walker is safe. Evan Neal's not sexy, but if you want to protect Lawrence and actually get a true evaluation and kind of do a full reset, I would understand it. But I do think Walker being a big key to an all-time defensive team in college makes it easy to see product that got put out against high caliber teams in Alabama that feels safe.
Is that not the risk, though? I mean, you've got Jordan Davis, Devontae White, who are both supposed to go high. You've also got Nakobe Dean at linebacker. Like, there was so much to take care of on that Georgia defense that's why I would almost say Hutchinson. I would lean that way over him. And with all this smoke that you're talking about is why I think that they were honestly in the tackle market until the Cam Robinson thing. And I don't think that they're technically out of it. I think it's from a perspective. From a optics standpoint, way harder for the everyday fan to tell if you miss on a tackle than if you miss on an edge rusher, right? Sacks or sexy stats, pancakes or not. If you miss one here or there, nobody's gonna, ruffle some feathers. I mean, shit, Eric Fisher was a draft bust when he first came out, right? And then turned his career around completely. So
decade-long career, yeah, not bad.
Yeah, so I think this is one where Balky balks and goes to protect his freaking franchise, quite frankly, in Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. So obviously they have
Evan Neal here, Toaster.
Yeah, I think it's Neal.
Okay. So obviously the Jags have Trevor Lawrence. They wouldn't be looking to draft a quarterback anyway, but let's just say all five of the first rounders from last year were in this class. Every single one of them, or if each of them was in, every single one of them would be the presumed number one overall pick, right?
Well, do they already have Trevor Lawrence, or are they going to draft a second Trevor Lawrence?
Well, no. I mean, for the sake of, in a vacuum here, you drop Zach Wilson or Trey Lance or Justin Fields or Mac Jones after their final college seasons into this particular draft class. All of those guys are probably going number one, right?
And there's a rush to the pedestal as who can get there, right? Detroit's trying to trade up. The Panthers are doing anything they can. I think even the Giants would be considering pairing their top draft picks to see if they can replace Daniel Jones.
Yeah. It's just an interesting class overall. It's like, it's pretty solid in a lot of areas. I think we're going to see a lot of really good players pushed into day 3 of the draft.
We call that Bears territory.
Yeah, that's where the Bears are really going to, make their money in this one. No, Toaster, I think we talked about it a little bit, but I wonder how much of the COVID situation in 2020 is really affecting this draft class or the depth of this draft class because of how many players essentially lost a year or, ended up pushing their eligibility out another year where they probably would have gone out last year. And just the inability to evaluate a lot of those guys. There's some people in this draft class that somebody like a George Pickens, for instance, had a breakout freshman year, 2019, 2020, obviously no real season, gets hurt. And, he's really got one solid year of college tape, and it was 3 years ago or whatever now, 4 years ago. So there's a lot of guys that are like that. So I find this class interesting because there's not a slam dunk at the top like a Trevor Lawrence or whatever. But I think there's a lot of really good depth because of how COVID played out. Does that track? Do you think that makes sense?
No, I think that it's absolutely true. This class almost is more impacted by COVID than the actual class that graduated or came out of the draft in COVID, right? Trey Lance probably being the one exception, but outside of that, you didn't know what to expect from these people after. I mean, some of these had a year-long layoff. I mean, you have someone like a Derek Stingley Jr. that got hurt right away and didn't have their opportunity to work their way back get as much game tape as they wanted to. So yeah, I would say that this class is almost a bigger question mark because you had that extra year where you didn't get game tape and you were willing to accept that risk last year, right? It was kind of like the cost of doing business. It's saying, hey, this is where the world is right now. I don't know what the heck I'm getting, so I'm just going to go with the best known cause that I can. But to your point, somebody like Pickens hasn't had tape on them for so long that it's like, what am I actually getting?
Yeah, because he's probably, I mean, this is a pretty deep or top heavy receiver group anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen some trusted draft people ranking him as high as like wide receiver 4 in this class. And it's just, there's such a range with Pickens as the example, but there's plenty of guys that sort of fit into that conversation for this class. But very interesting. Probably, as always, right, the most interesting situation of any draft is outside of the number 1 pick is going to be the quarterbacks. Usually it's one and the same, but we've got several quarterback needy teams in the first round. A couple of them, the Lions have 2 first-round picks. The Seahawks have gotten their first-round pick, or gotten a first-round pick in the Russell Wilson deal, so they've gotten back in after trading it for Jamal Adams. But you've got a bunch of teams that need quarterbacks. But is this class really the kind of class where teams are going to be jumping up to get them? I think my biggest question for you guys is, who do you ultimately think drafts the first quarterback, and who is it?
I think it's probably going to fall all the way to the Steelers and Malik Willis. I don't think that Matt Rule, as much as Tepper wants to interfere with things, and he's been very, very clear that you can't compete without a quarterback. He's got Sam Darnold, top 3 pick. You just 6 is too rich for everybody, and 6 would have to be Kenny Pickett because he's the only one that's ready to go and potentially save Matt Rule's job. But it's too rich at 6, and they don't pick again until what, round 4? Pick 137.
37.
So the reason they haven't made a move on Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, anybody else is that they're holding out hope that there's somebody's in love with at pick 6 that will move up in between the 2 Giants picks and take a Thibodeau or somebody, and allow them to drop into the teens so that they can pick up Kenny Pickett. Because I think Malik Willis has much higher upside, but still way too much risk for that Matt Rule era and the amount of time that they have to get the Carolina Panthers back on the right track.
Yeah, for sure. How are you feeling about it, J-Rob?
I'm with Toaster on this one. I think it's Willis to the Steelers.
At 20.
Yeah, and similar to what he said about Carolina. Matt Rule's kind of on his last leg, and I don't think the organization's going to give him a new quarterback when he might be out the very next year, and you probably don't want to give someone who is on the fence that much kind of saying power in the future of the team. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he's going to go there. I don't think the Seahawks are really dying to get a quarterback at 9. The only wild card that I could see happening, and it's a wild card, would be the Titans to move up to try and get Willis. Tannehill's 34. He's not getting any younger. That contract, it's not going to get renewed after next year. You can give Willis a year to get acclimated with the team, not put him in the spotlight right away. But other than that, I think Willis is the first off the board, regardless of who he goes to. But I do think probably the Steelers at 20.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I agree, Toaster, that Pickett is the most ready to step in, but Willis is the guy that if you're taking a chance and you're swinging for the fences, like he's really the only guy in this class. Maybe Ritter, but I just don't see it with Ritter necessarily.
That's just such a risk at 6.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree, which is why I'm with you. I think Willis will be the first quarterback taken, but which team takes him, I'm really not sure, because I agree that if everything stayed in order, he's probably not going until Pittsburgh. But you've got the Giants with 2 first-round picks here. The Jets are sitting there at 10. I'm sure they would move back a little bit for a team looking to get up and snag one of those picks.
Well, 10's reserved for Debo, so that don't need to discuss
apparently.
that one. I mean, shoot, maybe the 49ers saw that they don't have what they needed to in Lance, and they go for Willis and, have a little rookie tree out.
There you go. Yeah. But I just think there's enough teams that are in that top 10 range, top 15 range, with the Eagles sitting there at 15, where they've got draft capital this year and next year in some cases, and they'd be willing to move down a little bit and let somebody jump them to grab Malik Willis. So, I mean, we're looking at this list of teams that are probably needing quarterbacks, right? The Lions, the Panthers, the Falcons, the Seahawks, the Commanders. Oh, that felt weird. The Saints and the Steelers. I mean, the Saints seem like a logical team to move up. I know they gave away their first round pick next year in order to get that number 19 pick from the Eagles, but to me, that's the kind of move that I could see them making. And where they would need to get to, I don't know. I mean, we saw what the Bears had to give up last year to go from 20 to 10. But they'd be moving up from 19. I just think some of those teams, there's going to be a surprise team here with the quarterbacks that jumps out and does something. And once the first one goes, you never really know how the rest of it will play out, which brings me to the question of over under 2.5 quarterbacks going in the first round. Where are you guys standing on that?
Well, I want to take it a step back real quick and just point out that of the 7 teams that you just rattled off, as far as needing a quarterback, 6 of them have top 3 draft picks at quarterback already. They've just already failed out. You've got Goff, Darnold, Mariota, Wentz, Winston, and Trubisky. So what does that say for your ability to evaluate talent in this draft? And that brings me to my next point. It's the fucking over. You take a shot. It's the most important position in the sport, in any sport, quite frankly. And if you can miss it 1, 2, and 3, and even trading up for a couple of those guys, then you take your shot at the end of the first round. You secure the 5th-year option. As much as it pisses Kyler Murray off that's the way that you have to go. That's the way of the sport right now, right? So I still think it's over 3. I think Willis goes in the teens to 20 is the cap at the Steelers. I don't think they would let him pass. Kenny Pickett slides in the low 20s, and somebody moves in, or the Lions take Desmond Ridder at the very least at 32. If it's not Matt Corral, I also think that for some reason they might like Matt Corral, but I'm going over on 2.5.
Okay, J-Rob.
Over is definitely safe, but I'm going to say under. I think it's only Willis and Pickett. I think someone will go early in the second round. I think a few will go early on in the second round. But, yeah, I think Willis and Pickett will go in the first 2. Though I'm going to admit, man, I don't feel good about Pickett at all. I know everyone says he's NFL ready, but, there's just a lot of film of NFL quarterbacks with not very large hands that just fumble the ball all the fucking time in the league. And that makes me nervous. And his last name's Pickett. I know it has nothing to do with it, but you're a quarterback with a last name Pickett.
Bad vibes.
And small hands. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. And
I thought this was a anti-protest thing. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So he's buyer's beware for me.
Yeah, I don't.
You guys remember when Spencer Rattler was in the conversation for all of this too? How fun was that?
God,
That's wild.
He transferred, right? He's like
Yeah.
NC State or something now.
Oh, I don't know exactly where he is, to be honest with you. That shows how far he's fallen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Pickett is NFL. Like, I guess we should sort of caveat this to some degree. He's the most NFL ready in that he's got the most like solid floor based on his skill set. But like, I don't think he is going to jump into a starting job in the NFL and give you much of anything. Like, it feels weird to say, but like, where would Davis Mills go with this quarterback group if he was in this class?
The first, easy. I don't think that there's any GM right now that would doubt that, especially after looking at what he did last year with the talent that was around him, the tumultuous situation that was around him. He would be first pick. I told him I didn't tell him personally because he doesn't really reciprocate back to me when I speak to him. He doesn't
listen to the pod?
Yeah. One of the few that doesn't. And, but I thought he was dumb for going out, especially with his injury history at Stanford, like get some more tape on him and come out this year. But I mean, it ultimately worked out for him. He's the quarterback for the Houston Texans, and I don't think they're in the market right now.
Yeah, I think you're right, at least with this draft class. I think I'm going to take the over on 2.5 because I'm with you. I think Willis somebody's going to move up for Willis, or his floor is 20 to Pittsburgh. I think Pickett definitely goes somewhere in the mid-20s. And the sweet spot for me really here is the Packers' second pick at 28 and the Chiefs' back-to-back picks. Like, and if all else fails, the Lions at 32, they pick again at 34. If some team wants to move into the first round, those all seem like, easy situations for the Packers and Chiefs, who both have, 2 first-round picks, and then the Lions as well, but picking just a couple spots later anyway. I think it makes total sense that a team will move there. So I'm thinking 3. I would be shocked if more than 3 go. It would mean teams are getting real desperate, but I'm leaning 3.
Yeah, real desperate, but can't overplay that one. So it wouldn't surprise me. I agree with you, though, from a talent perspective. It can't be more than 3.
Yeah. All right. Well, the position that does have a lot of talent here is wide receiver group. We could see as many as 7 guys, 8?
I mean, technically 32.
Well, sure. Yeah. But I mean, based on some mocks that I've seen and what I hear people saying about this group, I mean, if a run starts, it may not stop. And maybe those spots where the Packers are with their 2 picks and the Chiefs with their 2 picks, maybe teams are moving into the first to grab a receiver if a run happens and they see an opportunity. So be interested to see what happens there. But who do you guys think is going to go first? Because all of these guys are, at least the group at the high end of this draft, right? Wilson, Burks, Olave, London, Jameson Williams. And, all of those guys are different sort of players, right? So a lot of it is going to be preference, I think, or scheme fit potentially with these teams selecting them. Odds on favorite right now is Garrett Wilson, but what do you guys think? I mean, London is like, I look at him and I think that's Mike Evans. You know what I mean? Like, how do you pass on a guy like that? So it's an interesting group.
Yeah, it is an interesting group. I think that if Jameson Williams hadn't been hurt, it was 100% Jameson Williams. I think that watching what Tyreek Hill was able to do with the Chiefs, everybody wants to emulate that because a guy with speed, a guy with precision route running that can get open is invaluable. It's just too deep right now to take that risk on his ACL. I'm not saying he won't return to be a stud player, but just, if you're sitting at the Jets at 10, I mean, the Falcons at 8 with Calvin Ridley no longer being seemingly part of their equation, or at least not until he finishes out listening to this podcast and setting the over-unders appropriately for himself. I think Garrett Wilson probably does end up being the first off the draft board.
Which of those guys will any of them see the second round? Like, are we overhyping any of them? Do you think there's like a lot of smoke with some of this stuff? Teams may be pushing for other positions. I mean, is there any one of those guys that has the potential to fall?
What's the over under set at right now, junior analyst?
7.5.
It's 7.5. Whew.
Holy shit.
Okay. Well,
dude, it was high.
Yeah,
I'll double check on a couple different, but like it's fucking up. There's a lot of or it might be 6.5. It might be 6.5. I'll double check that. But it's expected to be like a ton. Yeah. I think it's the Jamar Chase effect, like seeing what adding something like that can do to your team and instantly upgrade everyone around them, even though it's not like doesn't protect the line, but like clearly it did a lot for the Bengals, that I think teams are now looking at wide receivers as that potential like turning point, that piece that can turn a mediocre offense into a dangerous offense, even if you don't need, it can hide other holes on the offensive side.
Yeah, and we've seen that you don't necessarily like the guys that are seen as the tippy top of a draft class aren't always the ones that turn out, right? So there's depth in a lot of these classes now. And, obviously that's good for people that are maybe looking for a receiver in the later rounds. But I think that also means teams are going to be like, okay, well, just because this guy's the 8th receiver, on the big board doesn't mean he's not going to be impactful. So why not go up and get him, or why not take a shot on that guy? So yeah, if it's 7.5, then I mean, that's crazy. But I mean, I've seen like so many mocks with like Sky Moore making it into the back end of the first round.
Sorry,
like,
it was 5.5.
5.5. Okay. That makes a lot more sense.
I was listening to someone earlier today that said they were expecting seven to go in the first round.
7 and one guy cut in half to go. No, I think the wide receiver market right now is a little bit overhyped. You look at what happened with Davante Adams. You look at what happened with Tyreek Hill. To J-Rob's point, Jamar Chase last year. I don't think there's going to be quite the run that people are expecting. I'm not even convinced the Packers are going to take a damn wide receiver in round 1 because it is so deep. I mean, you look at the 10th person we're listed right here is John Mechie III for Alabama, who was, we don't have to go standout, but very, very solid as far as filling in for once Williams went down and even on his own. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to take the under on 5.5. I would on 7.5, but I think there's newfound importance at this position. And that's why they're getting, we don't have to call it 30 million annual average value to just freaking pump up Tyreek Hill. But that's why they're 25 million plus right now, because they're seen as impactful players.
Which is why I think we're going to see a lot of these guys go. I mean, you mentioned the Adams and Hill deals. Part of that situation and how it's affecting the rest of the league is, you can get production out of a rookie, right? So teams are obviously, they're more willing to move on from those big contracts. It's why you see guys like DK, Debo, AJ Brown, Darren Waller, like those are not normally guys that you would see hit the block, but teams are going, well, we can replace most of this production with a rookie, and we're not going to pay the 30 million average annual value or whatever, right? And the cost to acquire these guys, I mean, that's like the crazy part about how this receiver market's evolved, is the cost to acquire them is astronomical from a draft pick standpoint, but then you double down by paying them, and it's really not worth it, I don't think, in most of these cases. I mean, yeah, for the Raiders, if you're going for broke in the AFC West, by all means, go get Davante Adams, right?
You can't give up Darren Waller on the flip side, but yeah.
yeah. That's stupid ass trade rumor. But I mean, there's that particular reason, I think, is why we're going to see so many of these guys go. And even guys like, so you go through that top list, but then you get to Sky Moore, you get to Jahan Dotson, George Pickens, who we mentioned earlier, somebody like Jalen Tolbert from Southern Alabama is like a guy that people see as like a deep threat player, somebody like Alec Pierce from Cincinnati is like your prototypical X. Did outstanding at the combine. I mean, there's like a lot of guys here that it's going to be, even if we only get 6 in the first round, in the top 40 picks, we're going to get 8, I think, easy, right? Is how this is going to play out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, whoever's doing marketing at Cincinnati is doing a great job right now. There's we've talked more about Cincinnati in this draft or in the mock drafts than ever in my life. But yeah, it's a newfound value. It'll be interesting to see how these teams value the wide receiver in round 1 versus the wide receiver in round 2 or 3, because I'm not convinced that there's that steep of a drop off once you get past the first 4 or 5, right? And I don't think there's quite the question mark behind wide receivers that there used to be. Kadarius Toney removed potentially, but there's a lot of talent here, and I think you can figure out how to fit them in the system. I don't know how old you guys are, but way back when, it used to be a learning curve for wide receiver their first year, right? They were basically a washout. Like, you could get a running back that was effective because it's like, okay, left, right, find the gap. That's all it's taken. But the wide receiver needs to learn how to block, needs to learn, the communication, the hot routes, the check downs, that sort of stuff. And I think that as we're getting more progressive in our college game as well, they're figuring this out. And Jamar Chase is the perfect example, saying, yeah, I'm more valuable than an offensive tackle because just throw the ball up and I'll freaking grab it.
Plus, these guys are getting, like, even before they get to college, right? The way that 7-on-7 has exploded at the lower levels of football has made these guys, I mean, quarterbacking as well to a certain degree, although obviously the degree of difficulty to be an NFL quarterback, is significantly higher than an NFL receiver. But what these guys are learning and the skills that they're refining before they even step on college campuses is wild. And there's always going to be a learning curve when you're understanding NFL terminology and the variables around you when you enter the NFL, and you're not just the biggest, strongest, fastest dude out there anymore. But yeah, I mean, the potential to get production out of a rookie receiver is better than it's ever been. And thankfully the league is steering into that, right? Like, we've seen the NFL drag their feet when it comes to coming up, to the times on a lot of different things. And we're finally embracing, from an offensive standpoint, the ability to, like, hey, this guy's really good in space. We're just going to fucking scheme him in space. I don't care that he can run 3 routes. Like,
I don't care that my quarterback can only throw 7 yards past the line of scrimmage. We'll give 2 of these guys and they'll figure it the fuck out.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that one plays out. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I'm stoked about the receivers in this draft. From a running back standpoint, is a running back going to go in the first round? And follow up, are we finally done with seeing running backs go in the first round? Has that ship sailed?
This sounds like an analyst question to me.
The over under is 0.5. So even Vegas thinks that it's not going to be a whole lot. To be honest, if you told me to name a running back that you thought was going to go high, I probably couldn't tell you outside of Dalvin Cook's brother and James Cook, but that's because of his name more than his production.
Well,
so yeah,
Breece
I'll leave
Hall
this
is
one.
Probably the only one, right, that would have potential, unless some team is like in love with Kenneth Walker, which you never know. There's some dumb teams that are out there still, but yeah, it's just the value is not there. And I know we had 2 go in the first round last year with Harris and ETN, but like, I just think,
and they combined for half the production of a normal running back. So I think that tells you all that you need to know.
Yeah. So I'm taking the under, and I'm hopeful anyway for all NFL teams and the sake of the league that it's the under. But
yeah, when you asked if there was a running back that would go high, I would have said Ricky Williams, and that's like maybe Marshawn Lynch. I don't know. Breece Hall maybe to the Bills is what I've seen mocked, and I don't think that the Bills are that dumb I think that they understand the value of this position, and they've been able to get decent production out of, some later round picks. This to me is the first, this to me brings us back, quite frankly, 10 years, when in 2013, 2014, there was no running back selected in the first round. And I thought that was the end of the running backs then. I think what we saw last year is that, yes, Najee can be a great asset, but Etienne showed you that, that asset can be there for, 16, 17 games, or they can be there for none. I mean, look at CMC right now, Christian McCaffrey. He, again, absolutely fantastic player, but if they just take such a beating, and then you look at somebody like, wow, why can't I think of the Dallas Cowboys running back right now? Because
Ezekiel Elliott.
Ezekiel Elliott, yeah, it's because he has two names, Zeke and Elliott. It just that he never played out that contract, and he won't ever play out that contract, and it's a burden to them right now. So I'm definitely taking the under on this one. I don't see any reason that there should be. I don't know what the line is. I'm sure it's not high, but I would definitely put the money on that side.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Talked a lot about offense here. Is there any defensive prospects that really excite you guys in the first round, or just in general, I suppose, maybe based on draft value? Anybody that stands out?
I'm really excited about, honestly, both the Georgia defensive tackles, Wyatt or Davis, wherever they go. I think that they're going to be freaking studs. And Aaron Donald finally got that one right. Is a unique talent. Yeah, it's a new year, new me. I hope that one of them can potentially reach that level. And if I had to put money on it, it would be Wyatt over Davis. I think Davis is a better run stuffer, and Wyatt can potentially reach that Aaron Donald level. And I just love the amount of physicality that Donald brings to the game, and I just want to see it repeated as much as I can. Like, that is what he's able to do from the inside is just fucking fun to watch. So if either of those can recreate it, I'm all down.
Yeah, I don't think any of those guys are like his level of quickness, right? But strength mixed with, I mean, what Jordan Davis does at his size, from a quickness and speed perspective is pretty remarkable. So yeah, I'm with you on those two guys. I want to see where they go. I'm hopeful that the Chargers find a way to get one of them, because that would be fucking huge. Although maybe not for Jay.
No, that's literally the only thing I don't want is Jordan Davis to go to the Chargers. And I'm terrified because the Chargers have enough picks early on that they can load up with everything that they didn't get in the free agency on the defensive side. I'm not looking forward to their draft at all.
Yeah. I think for me, there's two guys that really stand out. The first is, I know we talked about him sort of falling a little bit here, but Kayvon Thibodeau. I feel like we overthink so much of this stuff, right? Like, this is a guy that's been
thing. Just another Thibodeau that you're going after.
No. Yeah, exactly. This is a guy that's been the number one pick, presumed number one pick in this class for a little while now. He produced. He's a freak of nature. I think in the Ringers draft book, they try to say what these guys, what's a good comp for them, or what their shades of whatever. And I think his is like a T-Rex and an F-wing fighter jet or something like that. And it's he's a freak of nature if he gets in the right system and is just able to go. I mean, I'm excited about him. But the other guy, and I feel like if his position was if he just listed himself as a corner, he'd be easily, in the top 3 conversation. But Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame is unreal. I mean, just go look up his highlights, the ground that he covers. He's big, he's fast. I don't think he's a thunderous hitter necessarily, but he's a sure tackler. This is a guy that from day one is going to a Derwin James sort of impact on defense.
So he's the safety that the Seattle Seahawks need. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if he makes it to 9, I'd be shocked if Pete passes on somebody like him. But yeah, those are the guys that I'm really looking at. I mean, there's a lot of like interesting prospects, but like with such a deep draft, it's like, okay, what guys are going to be stars? We know there's going to be a lot of guys here that are going to be good players, but who's going to be a star? And Thibodeau and Kyle Hamilton. Hamilton is some team's going to just like be in love with him the second they draft him because he's going to be undervalued because he's a safety and he's going to go in like, you know, the 7 to 12 range. And it's just, he's going to be a problem from day one. So I'm stoked about him.
And it looks like we're all kind of differing here because I got two other people that I really like. I love Nakobe Dean. I know he's like metrics wise isn't like the sexiest combine stats, but he reminds me of like a Troy Polamalu at linebacker. Like he reads the defense, he reads everything so well. He can command a defense. He can disguise well. You can disguise him in multiple formations. And if you're reading plays at the college level before they happen, like that's a next level like preparedness or prep work that like you don't see too often. So I feel like his game's going to translate because he's a guy that's going to be prepared and he can be a Swiss Army knife for a defense that has a creative coordinator. And the second one, with all these wide receivers kind of being a prominent like factor, I think Sauce Gardner, once again, Cincinnati plug, but Sauce Gardner is another guy that I think isn't afraid of anybody. You have film on him now against like kind of the premier guys because they made the playoffs. And like, yeah, he wasn't like amazing, but he held his own. Yeah. And so I think that does nothing but up his stock too. And so I think he's another guy that with all his receivers going, you have to kind of mirror that product and go with a good corner. And I think he's a good corner to take in the first round.
Yeah. I like both of those guys too, for sure. Toaster, you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was going to bring up Sauce regardless because it'll be, you know, there's always a small school knock. That's why they didn't make it in the college playoffs forever, and they finally got there. And I think, you know, Sauce, like you said, held his own and showed that small school can still compete. The biggest question mark to me, and I want to know what round, or not what round, but what level you think he'll fall to as far as number wise, is David Ajabo with his Achilles injury, because that's going to be the ultimate steal if he's able to get back his explosiveness.
He's healthy. I mean, I would have to think that worst case for him is, you know, the first half of the second round, right? Like some team's going to say, okay, like this is worth it. You know, even if we don't get anything out of him for however long.
A Ravens at 45 type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a Ravens move. Yeah. I mean, he's nasty. You know, where would he have gone, do you think, if he was healthy?
Easily top 10. Easily.
Yeah. He's pretty damn nasty out there. But all these Wolverines, Josh. All these Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, man. One day they'll have offensive players that actually contribute to the NFL, but well, I guess Tom Brady did, but that just speaks to the draft though. Speaking of that though, like the fact that like we can't grade Tom Brady the greatest quarterback of all time, like what does this all mean? Like what does this even matter if we can't grade Tom Brady? Like it's I think
it means Bill Belichick, right? That's obviously all Bill.
Yeah, Bill knew that he could pass on him 6 times. And he would be there. Yeah. No, you're totally right. It's all such a crapshoot, which is why, frankly, it's dumb as hell to trade up unless you're trading up for a quarterback. These are all lottery tickets. Trade back. You never know what you're going to get.
Well, you didn't until the podcast. Now you guys know.
Right.
So that's
now you know exactly what you're going to get. Yeah. Yep. We are all draft experts here.
I've got a question for you guys. Is there anyone that screams first round bust?
Is there a position specific?
If there were more quarterbacks going in the first round, let's say wide receivers. There's a lot going in the first round. Of those, which one do you think is going to succeed the most, and which one do you think is going to, maybe bust a little bit?
So I don't I love football. I follow college football decently well, but I'm not like I know every single roster. I watch every freaking game. I'm sure as shit not watching like non-power 5 schools frequently or whatever. I'm always skeptical of guys that I didn't really hear about throughout the regular season and all of a sudden their names pop up at the end. So like I watched every snap of Justin Fields' college career. I know Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave very well. But guys like Jameson Williams, we obviously got to see him on a big stage. Drake London, just because of his size, was like a guy that, you kind of knew about, you wanted to keep tabs on. But for me, the guy that I've seen as high as people's number one receiver on certain boards is Treylon Burks. I'm like, I get the Arkansas is the SEC, but like I couldn't have named him until after the regular season ended. And yeah, his stats look great, and he's big, and the more you read about these guys, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can see why he's being considered as a first round pick. But it's like, those are the guys that scare me. Why didn't I know about him earlier? So he would be my pick, I suppose.
That's my pick too. Since we're all supposed to disagree on things, throw out there quickly to junior analysts. If you didn't like Pickett, then you probably love Sky Moore as a wide receiver. Sounds like a great jump ball wide receiver. I'd have to just go Dotson at this point, just because, Pickens has too many question marks as far as can he get back to where he was before. I actually believe in Christian Watson quite a bit. So if we're looking at top 6, 7, Dotson's the one that scares me the next most after Burks. And I do think that there will be. I think it's completely fair that 2 out of the top 7 wide receivers turn out to be not worth it. N'Keal Harry, so call him.
Oh, let's hope not, for any of their sakes. And if you're looking at other positions here, probably following like a similar theme. But it's always hard. Like, I don't know. I see some of these offensive linemen and I'm like, okay, I never heard of this fucking guy, but that's O-line, right? That's just kind of the nature of it. There's a handful of other
penalties.
Yeah, exactly. Like the 2 Washington corners stand out to me. So Kyler Gordon and Trent McDuffie. I didn't really know about them too much. I didn't, and I'm unfortunately an Arizona State football fan. So, I've watched a lot of Pac-12 games. I was at the game in Seattle where ASU came back to win it. Those guys never even stood out to me like live. Like, I never once said like, oh, wow, that corner's legit or whatever. So the fact that both of those guys are, top, especially, top 50 picks, but like could both potentially go in the first round, that also really surprises me. Plus, I don't know, something about Pac-12 players always, I seem to overrate in my head too anyway, and they end up sucking, but it's what it is.
All right.
One day the Pac-12 will be good.
I'll do a rapid fire real quick. 4 players. What team do they play for week 1? Kyler Murray.
Cardinals.
Okay, he's staying put. Baker Mayfield.
What about you?
I said Cardinals too.
Cardinals. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he'll stop bitching out. I don't think he'll get a contract extension this summer, but he'll understand that he doesn't have quite the pull to go play for the Oakland A's anymore that he thinks he does. Baker Mayfield.
Holds out. Doesn't play for a single team.
Ooh.
And they don't trade him.
That's an expensive number 3 quarterback.
I just don't think they're really trying to get rid of him. And I think deep down they want him to like kind of bridge the potential gap. But I think he's going to hold out, and I think teams don't really want to touch him.
And then they franchise tag him next year.
Dude, it's gonna get that situation is gonna get ugly, man. I think
Yeah.
it's gonna be a holdout situation. Teams aren't really gonna be dying to trade for him because what are you gonna give up for Baker Mayfield? And the teams that need a
Mhm.
quarterback aren't looking to really rebuild that hard. Like Atlanta has cap space, like no cap space, and a ton of dead cap. The Panthers
Mhm.
are in Darnold hell. I think they're gonna give Goff another run. Seahawks aren't in a position to find a quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play for a team.
I'm it was either yesterday or earlier today. I saw the structure of Geno Smith's re-sign with the Seahawks.
The one that actually went through.
Yeah, the one that actually went through. And I'm thinking they're more and more of a possibility than I thought prior. When they re-signed Geno, I was like, okay, you have Locke, unless you find a trade partner for Locke, which probably isn't going to happen. You have Locke, you have Geno. Why would you bring Baker in as well? But the Geno situation is very, very easy for them to get out of. I don't know off the top of my head what their cap situation looks like, if they can fit Baker in without making other moves. Do you
I think
know
they
if
need a
those are-
couple minor moves, but it's not egregious. They're in the middle of the pack.
Okay. Yeah, so they have 13 million in space right now. So I think the Seahawks are more of a favorite than I previously would have given them a chance.
Well, and they don't necessarily have to take on his whole 18. That's also negotiable.
Oh, right, because of the offset language. Yep, you're right. Otherwise, I don't know, man. There's not a lot of teams that really make sense, right? Like, what team thinks they're a mediocre quarterback away from competing? There's not many of them.
I still think Baker goes to the Carolina Panthers for a late round pick, only to keep him away from the Steelers.
Mm.
And the caveat
Okay.
there is that he's still only under contract, technically, on a 5th-year option, and could just say "F you Browns" and I'm going to the Steelers next year. But that would be where I would go, because he's the only one his compensation value is so low from a draft pick perspective that the Panthers could actually pull off.
Yep.
Next one's obviously Jimmy G. I'm going to start this one off. I think he's on the 49ers. I don't think Trey Lance is fucking ready.
They've been, I don't know. This time of year's impossible to listen to what people are saying and know what's true or not, because everything that I've read is they're ready to move forward with Lance. Man, it's a similar situation in my mind to the Baker situation. Who's going out of their way right now to trade for Jimmy, right? Like,
They overplayed their hands. They thought
Yeah.
they were holding out for a 2nd-round draft pick last year, and he did. I'm not going to say he didn't increase his value, but the injury at the end of the year just derailed all of that. And maybe that was Jimmy's own little ploy. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking up and down. The only team that stands out to me here is potentially the Texans. If they don't want to continue to roll with Davis Mills, but I can't imagine they'll give up anything of note for him. Like, if you're the Texans, you wait to see if they cut him, right?
Yep. The fallback would be for me the Titans, and then I don't know the Miami Dolphins draft situation as far as picks off the top of my hand. I know they only have 4 picks, and I know they don't pick until the 3rd round, but that would be the insurance potentially for Tua next year.
Yeah.
J-Rob, anything?
I do think the Titans make some sense for like a Baker or a Jimmy, where you can just rely on a heavy run game. But once again, like, the salary cap's a shit show, and like, are you really going to be trading picks for a mediocre quarterback who they both have enough film on them that you kind of know what you're going to get? You're not going to get really anyone that's going to be a game changer, and I don't think they're willing to trade a lot of stock and value for someone that's not going to push the needle. So I think, these guys are going to end up being stuck where they are, and if they're going to go anywhere, it's going to be maybe to be a backup, like maybe to back up like I don't know, an Aaron Rodgers or Josh Allen, or maybe you send Jimmy to like Jacksonville for like a late pick to be like a veteran guy in the locker room. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just throwing shit at a wall and hoping it sticks because I have no idea like where these guys would go.
It's the first
Commanders
time
are clearly all in on Wentz. The night the Vikings re-signed fucking Cousins. Texans like Mills. Ravens got Lamar and Huntley. The Eagles are all in on Hurts. The Saints like Winston. The Chargers have Herbert. Like, you can just keep going down the list, and it just you have a reason to not take any of those guys.
Would the Giants make a move? Bring in
that could be probably
like that.
actually, yeah.
You gotta bundle
Daniel Jones.
You got to bundle 5 and 7 to get Jimmy G from the 49ers. But yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I mean, if they want to create some competition for Daniel Jones and have a solid backup, do they have one right now that stands out to any of you guys? I hate that we're in the point in the offseason where I'm like, I actually don't know where anybody is. So
no,
they got Tyrod Taylor as their backup to Daniel Jones.
Okay.
So,
but looking at that, so he's only counts for 2.7 against the cap. I mean, I wonder. Let's see if they post June 1 him. No, they still have to eat some money. So yeah, they might be a little locked in. Oh my God, they gave him a void year. Holy shit! I didn't realize the Giants' cap situation was that bad. Tyrod his cap numbers 2.7 this year, 6.9 next year, and 1.4 in 2024 on a void year. That is rough.
Wow. And Gettleman's gonna fuck up 5 and 7. So there you go. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna interject real quick with bold prediction. Patriots trade down from pick number 21.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna say into the second round, but actually I think it's the Cowboys moving up for a wide receiver ahead of the Packers. And then last of the trade questions, Deebo Samuel.
I think the Jets make like too much sense, right? Like, you've got Mike LaFleur running that offense. You have Robert Saleh. Like, you have a young quarterback. They've got draft assets. They've got cap space. Like, they make too much sense, right?
Yep. I'm the same way. And Kyle Shanahan to me seems similar to the Bill Belichick. Get rid of him a year too early versus a year too late. And guess what? I made you, mother effer. So go enjoy taking your talents to the Jets.
There's no way in hell, though, that they're getting the number 10 pick from the Jets. Are we aligned there? Do we think the Jets are that dumb?
Ever since DeAndre Hopkins went for a second round pick, I don't think like that fucked that whole situation. I don't think they get a 10th overall pick for him.
The Jets do have 2 second round picks that are high, 35 and 38. So I think that there's some room there to make that work.
Yeah. One or both of those picks maybe packaged together. The Niners need to recoup picks from the Lance trade.
So. I'd assume it's a 38 and a future one, honestly.
Future one. Yeah. That would track with what we've seen with Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I think it's got to be the Jets, though.
Yep.
I'm just mentally prepared for my own heart and stress that I just assume any big free agency is just going to end up in the AFC West at this point. So I've mentally prepared for the
Chiefs to bundle
to get Deebo. I've accepted it. I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but I've just accepted that all free agents are going to the AFC West.
I think the Chiefs are out on the big receivers based on the Hill thing. They're not going to go turn around and pay somebody. So I think you're safe there.
Yeah. All right. Any other bold predictions we need to leave these people with?
I don't think so. Do any of the 8 teams that don't have first round picks? So the Bears, the Colts, the Browns, the Niners, Broncos, Raiders, Dolphins, Rams. Do any of them trade up into the first round?
The Rams do, just to trade it back away.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's enough movement right now. The only team that could potentially pull it off to me would be if you're calling a Deebo trade. for the 49ers first round. Outside of that, the Colts are the closest, but I think that Irsay likes his draft picks too much too. So I don't see any. I think it's quiet day for all of them, and quite frankly, the Patriots, because that's just how Bill rolls.
You don't think the Colts move up to try and get a wide receiver since they've got this Matt Ryan window? Like, do you think they go like hard?
Oh, we're calling it a window now. Okay, the Falcons did that last year too.
I mean, if you're getting Matt Ryan over Carson Wentz, I consider that you're opening up a window or two. Okay. So
I think we talked about it at 42. There's still going to be somebody there that's stud enough to get it done to pair with Pittman. I don't think they need to.
Totally, and I think the benefit with this particular group of receivers and the ones that will be in the second round is that the hardest thing to find in this group is like a true X, like go, throw it up, win a matchup guy. They have that in Pittman, right? There's plenty of guys in this draft that can fill a slot role or, sort of a move player in a Z position. So I think really they'll be in great shape if they want to sit there at 42 and take somebody.
Yeah. And maybe Paris Campbell will be finally healthy as well. That'd be good for them. But yeah, I don't see anyone moving up.
Yeah. All right. Anything else before we get out of here, guys?
Little cross sport comp. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is the NFL version of Anthony Edwards. A dude that's really fucking talented and openly admits that he's just like, yeah, I'm really talented, but like my life isn't all about this sport. And I think people are going to dislike that, but I think he's going to ball out. So
yeah,
random cross sport comp, but I think he's still going to put in work, but yeah.
Don't disagree, but
he gives me Anthony Edwards vibes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we will be watching. If anything big goes down, we'll obviously recap it for you guys. But I'm stoked. It feels like there's been such a lull in the NFL calendar.
A month.
A month. Yeah, seriously. But we're here. Draft day's here.
Yeah, all the litigation got pushed to a couple months out, so not much to talk about.
Yep.
I do have one parting question. You just have to give me a name. You guys both have picks in the first round, respective teams. Who do you guys want your team to take?
Well, the Bears don't have a first round pick, so
I thought they did.
No, they're at 39 and 48.
So I guess your first pick, the 39th pick, who do you want them to take?
In an ideal world, George Pickens, if he's there.
Okay. Then Toaster, your guys' first pick.
My team also doesn't have a first round pick, so.
But like your guys is like first pick in the draft.
Yeah,
I'm moving the goalpost here.
Yeah, it's for the 39th overall pick and 78th.
So who are you taking?
They're gonna trade back. I don't have a first round pick either.
Oh, okay.
But they have a first
yeah.
Let's cut it.
For sure gonna trade.
He's trying
back.
he's trying to be too smart about it. He's trying to make a joke.
If they don't trade, who would you like? You guys.
They're gonna take Devin Lloyd. We're not fucking up another first round wide receiver. That's why we got Parker.
Yeah, there you go.
That guy from Miami.
Mm-hmm.
He never plays.
All right, let's go.
All right, we'll catch you guys later. Enjoy the draft and football. We're getting right back into it, baby. Let's go.
All right, camps are back.
Kind of back.
Kind of.
NFL's never gone. It's never a goodbye. It's never a goodbye. It's just a see you later.
Exactly.